Welcome to another Beacon demonstration video. Today I'm going to take you through supplier tax invoices and supplier credits that can be entered in through the Beacon back office there when you have goods received inwards, or if you need to perform a credit for items that maybe didn't get delivered. So to do that, we're going to go through the back office. We're going to go up to either the data entry menu and supplier tax invoices, or alternatively it's also found under the suppliers menu under supplier tax invoices credit, but both of them will do the same thing. So we'll click on that. And it loads up the screen like so, and the tab name does say Supplier Tax Invoices / Credits. So to begin, we're going to add a supplier tax invoice, and I do have an example with me here today. So you've got down the bottom there is the add button, so we'll click on that. And the options we have up the very top to begin with are invoice, which it is by default, but you also have a credit, which is what we'll also run through. And there is also options for delivery docket and a return, but we'll be covering those two in a new video coming up not long after the release of this one. So we're going to focus on the first two. So we'll start with an invoice. Now, the next thing it asks is what supplier, and in this case I have a fictional supplier of credit called GEMS Distributors. So I bring them up. The next thing I want to know is the actual date. So using usually the paperwork that you've received when the goods are delivered to your store, you just need to enter these details in. So the date, for example, will be today's date. And then from there, we also have the invoice number. So on the paperwork, once again, you're using the invoice number. Also, if you have a due date that the item is due for payment, you can enter that in over on the right hand side, but that is optional. Or there is a discount date if you have a discount supplied by a supplier, but in this case we're not going to enter that in, that's fine. Also, we have the invoice total. So on the paperwork, usually the inclusive amount total is what we need to enter in there. So in this case it's $455.35, and you can see it's automatically on the right hand side assumed a 10% GST amount of $41.40. Also, it will automatically assume the GL period that you're currently in. This GL period is applicable to those using the Beacon integrated general ledger feature. So this will just follow the date of the invoice that you've applied, so it shouldn't need to be changed. Also, there is an optional description field in there. You don't have to enter it in, but if you wanted to say, you can do so like that. Okay, but now you can see also before we begin entering the items in, you can also see the bottom left hand corner, it does have to be allocated, and that is the total amount excluding GST that we have to fulfill with all the items that we're going to add in our invoice. Also, the GST total on the right hand side says $41.40, so that also is the excluding GST amount that we need to make sure all our items come to that total. So before we can complete this invoice, we're going to need both those amounts to be $0 and be completely fulfilled. With that being said, let's go ahead and enter these three items I've got in my invoice. So I click on the add button down the bottom left hand corner, and it loads up this window that says Creditor Detail Entry, and you've got the ability now to firstly pick your stock item, or alternatively if you did have a general ledger item like a code for freight or any other kind of GL code, you can do that as well, but I'm going to leave it as stock code. Now if you have the codes on hand, you can type them in. If you don't have the codes, you can just type in with the keyword. So I'm going to type my word as 600ml Coke and press enter, and I've got a listing of all the items in the system that have those keywords in there. In this case I'm going to use my 600ml Coke item like so, and also I can type in the units or the quantity in cartons. So in this case, let's say it was going to be 5 cartons, and you can see it's automatically done the math and said that based on over on the right hand side, units per carton, 24 units make up each carton, therefore it must be 120 single units. Also, next thing down is the unit price, and it does automatically assume the last cost price based on either the average or the last cost. So in this case you can see it's actually taken the amount from the last cost because that's the current cost price we have in there. There's no average cost at the moment, so that's fine. But what I'm actually going to do on my paperwork, the price has actually increased, so it's no longer that price, it's now $2.15 each per unit, and therefore it's calculated that the total of those must come to $258 excluding GST. So that's fine, I'm going to hit OK to that. Okay, so in this next scenario I'm going to add a catalog code that wasn't already in there before. So my next item is the Coke No Sugar. So if I bring up Coke No Sugar item, now you'll notice over here there's no catalog code in this section here, so I'm going to actually teach it the catalog code. Now I should point out to you that the supplier is set to GEMS Distributors as the default, so that's also very important in stock maintenance. Once you've done that, then you can actually teach it the new codes. So in this case my paperwork says that the new code for this is 2345 like that, and I'm just going to proceed from there. So the cartons, once again I've got 2 cartons there. You can also see if I don't want to put in cartons, I can just type the whole units in, so like that, 48 units, and it also assumes that it means 2 cartons. So either way, once again also we've got a new cost price there, so I'm going to say it's $2.15 per unit, and then okay. So you can see in the background there, it hasn't added the catalog code in yet, but as long as this is the default supplier, when we complete the tax invoice, it will learn that new code in stock main. And the third and final item in my tax invoice is a Coke Lift Lemon. And also in this case, I've just got the 1 unit, 1 carton, and also the cost price is that price there. It's staying as that. Okay, I'm happy with that. Go okay to that, and I'm going to press cancel because there's no more items to add to my invoice now. And you can see down the bottom left-hand corner now, we have nothing in there to be allocated, and we also on the right-hand side, where the GST total is, we also have nothing there. So this is actually perfectly able to complete, and there's no discrepancy there between total and the amounts that we've got there. But let's do an alternate scenario and pretend like there was a difference. So let's perhaps increase this total up the top here. So let's make it 40 cents instead of 35. Now, if you look down the bottom left-hand corner, it's got a to be allocated amount of 5 cents there. And if I try and press OK to complete this, you'll see the message in the center of the screen does say to be allocated value must be $0. So it needs us to make sure this is correct. So what I would do if this was a legitimate circumstance, I would go back to my paperwork and I would compare all the lines there. So we're going to go through each of these and double check to make sure that all the line totals or the GST match up. And then once I've found out if there is legitimately a discrepancy there where all my items were perfectly correct, but the total is different, and that sometimes does happen, suppliers' invoices sometimes are out. There's 2 ways to go about this. There's either the calculate total option, which will recalculate the total of my line items to make it correct amount, which is what it is here. Or if it was a legitimate discrepancy, there is a stock cost variance option down the bottom there. And that will basically add that 5 cents in as a general ledger code there to basically calculate and just accept the difference there. Okay, so that being said, we've made our variance, we've accepted it. I can proceed and complete the invoice now. So I press OK to that down the bottom, and you can see it stays on this screen just in case you had a separate invoice, a new invoice you want to enter in as well. You can do that. You can pick either this supplier or a different supplier. I'm just going to go ahead and complete the original invoice. So I'm going to press cancel, and it takes us back to this main screen. You can see there's our transaction we've entered in there for $455.40, and it's basically ready to complete. Now, at this stage, the tax invoice is not completed yet, so it's part of your goods received not updated information. So if you ever look at your stock take, or if you go to your stock maintenance and inquiry screen and you bring up one of those items, you can see there is a goods received not updated figure. So from there, it's not until the goods are received and we're all happy with the paperwork that we can then complete the tax invoice. So what we do is we select it like so, we go to the complete button down the bottom there and click on it. Now it does come up one final time in case you need to make any final adjustments to it there. And if we are happy to go ahead, we can press OK down the bottom there. This will ask you, do you want to print an audit trail? That's if you want to get a printout copy. If you say yes to that, it will load up a A4 sheet like so. And if you want to print that off or save it to PDF, that's fine too. Okay, and now if we want to do a supply credit where it does the reverse function of an invoice, it's just as simple as what we just saw before. So to do that, we're just going to go back down to the add option down the bottom, and instead of having the invoice option, we're going to change it to credit. We're going to bring up the supplier. Once again, I'm going to use my distributor there, and I'm going to say the date. So if this was a previous date, I can say it was the 10th, and the invoice number and the invoice total. Okay, and that's the GST that's assumed there for 10%. Okay, and I can once again put in my optional description there. So I could say this is a credit for maybe some bad lift drinks that I got. So once again, I've got the to be allocated amount down the bottom there and the GST down the bottom there as well. But I'm going to add this item in that I'm getting a credit on. So I'm going to click on add, and I can bring up my item. Now in this case, it is once again the 600ml lift. And I'm going to say it was 24 units are going to be credited, and that's also the amount I'm going to use. And I'm just going to click OK to that there. That's all I have for the credit here, and you do also have the option to add a piece of text in the actual body of the invoice there. So besides the actual description up the top there, if I wanted to leave a bit of text that the supplier could see or anyone else that receives this could see, I can add that down the bottom. So click add text, and I could say another one perhaps. Okay, so that's my credit, simple as that. I can click on OK. Once again, I'm just going to now click cancel to get out of that because I don't want to add any more, but I do have my credit. You can see up the top here, it does say credit there, and you can see the negative amount showing. It's going to do the reverse of what an invoice would. So once again, I do want to complete it, so I have to click on it, and then down the bottom, I have the complete button to complete. I also have the option to print it and inquire on it if I want to, but I'm going to go ahead and complete it. So complete. It does once again come up and want you to just prove those in case you need to make any last minute corrections, but I'm fine with that. So I'm going to hit the OK button again, and it will ask you once again, do you want to print an audit trail, yes or no? If I do say yes, it will come up on the screen in an A4 format, which I can choose to print or export a PDF. But once we've done that, we've completed it. Now if I go back and have a look at it in stock maintenance, if I bring up the transactions and I hit OK, you can see, there we go. There was at one point an invoice that I entered in earlier, but also I've now also done a credit for it, and it's also removed it off there. And that's as simple as how you enter in supplier tax invoices and credits in the Beacon system. Thanks for watching our video on how to enter a supplier tax invoice or a supplier credit into the Beacon system. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at support@beaconsoftware.com.au.